Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, October the 25th, 2017. This is show number 1153. We got a great show for you guys as always. But first up, let's introduce the new cute member of the team, Melissa. Say hello, Melissa.
Hello.
Oh, I thought she was going to do it.
Hello, Melissa.
You see?
I was gonna, but I didn't.
She's a trainee. She's new here to the show. She's in training.
Hello, Melissa.
And we've decided if you guys don't like her, she's gone. Okay? I'm just saying that right now.
What if they don't like you? What if they prefer me over you? Just kidding.
Oh, I thought it was going to fester. Oh. Yeah, that was mean. That was... Yeah, she's going to... Mo. None of us like him, you know. I just completely lost train of thought there. On tonight's show, we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. We're going to talk to Jim about Apple TV shows. Apple, the rumor is that Apple will only be working on TV shows that are basically G-rated. Is that good? Is that bad? We'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about the iPhone 10. Pre-orders are happening this coming Friday at 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Will you be pre-ordering a iPhone 10? Or will you be trying to get one in store? That's not happening. You're not getting one in store. Don't even try. Either pre-order it on Friday or forget about it. You're probably not getting it for Christmas. Send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. In our starting point photography segment, going to be talking about photography in the winter, basically in low light conditions and the dreariness of our northern hemisphere winters, how you can still get out there and take photographs. Speaking of hemispheres, some of you may have noticed that Melissa does not have a northern hemisphere accent. She has a southern hemisphere accent. Specifically, she has an accent from...
Australia.
Which part of Australia?
New South Wales.
You can, if you'd like, in the IRC chat room, say hi to Les Posen.
Yes, he said g'day already.
He is also...
I should say g'day. I didn't say g'day to you, Les.
He is... Do you guys actually say that? G'day?
G'day.
That's not just a
G'day,
stereotype?
mate.
All right. Just checking.
So stereotypical.
It really is. But it's not a stereotype if you actually do it.
I never did it.
You never did it?
No.
So is it like the Canadian A, that not everyone does it?
I think so.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. I'm not really Australian anymore.
Oh, what?
I'm not.
Then why do you talk funny? You're Australian.
I'm a cosmopolitan girl. I'm not just...
No, you're not. You're a city mouse.
Country, silly.
Sorry, country mouse. I'm the city mouse. What was I going to say? Oh, so welcome to the show.
Oh.
This is for you. Ching ching.
Ching ching.
Ching ching. So yes, Melissa, hopefully, if she likes it, if she enjoys it, if you guys are nice to her, say hi to her in the IRC chat room. You can send her emails, too, to melissa@yourmaclifeshow.com, and she'll get those emails if you wanted to ask questions about Australia or things like that. Melissa and I and her very lovely son, Rory, and his weird little friend, Jasper, are... he's not weird. He's a cute kid. We're off to Australia ourselves, December 8th. Till the 28th, we're going to be in Australia over the Christmas holidays and Australian summer. I'm really looking forward to that because except for this week here in Vancouver, which is going to be beautiful and sunny, not in Vancouver, in the Gibson area, it's going to be miserable. So leaving the Vancouver area, the lower mainland, the south coast of British Columbia in the middle of winter is going to be fantastic to go to a summertime in Australia. And you promised me a lot of interesting things in Australia, haven't you?
I've promised you?
Yes, beaches and...
You're just paralyzed with fear. You don't listen to anything I say. You're too frightened of all these things in Australia.
Everything in Australia can kill you, so of course you should be frightened. That's why you only have a population of 30 million, because everyone else dies.
No, they don't.
Susan Gare has joined us in the IRC chat.
I know.
You remember Susan?
Of course, I said hello to Susan.
Good. So you're getting the swing of things. Cool. Good.
Yes.
What else is going on? Something else going on. Oh, and by the way, I teased on Twitter, big, huge, massive news. It's not just Melissa. There is other big, huge, massive news you have to stay tuned for after the Jim Dalrymple segment. So about 6:15 Pacific time. If you folks are listening to the archive, you can skip ahead. Don't worry about it. There'll be the other big, giant news that we'll be talking about. So I wanted to remind you guys, there will be no shows after December 8th until the new year. I'm going to try, but it's probably not going to be very likely that I'll be able to do a recorded show while we're down in Australia, just because of we're going to spend most of the time visiting her family. Yeah, no pressure there. When's the last time you were in Australia?
18 years ago.
18 years ago. And
yes.
You basically sent out the word to all your friends and family that you're going to be there. And so it will be a social whirlwind, won't it?
Yes.
Of visiting family and relatives and cousins.
But we'll be outdoors, and you can drink lots of beer.
What I'm saying is there will not be an opportunity, unlikely opportunity, for me to be able to do a show. That being said, we do want your Christmas greetings. Please send us in your traditional. We've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now. YML Christmas holiday greetings. Can't say it. Just videotape yourself on your iPhone or your Macintosh. Just give us your name, where you live, and Merry Christmas to friends, to family, to YML, to me, to Melissa, to whoever you'd like. And I'll splice all those together, and we'll put them up during the Christmas holidays. Dave D says, post pictures. I'll be posting a lot of pictures. That's guaranteed. I'm actually, what was that?
Oh, just Dave's not going to. Dave's not going to let you forget about all the sharks and the spiders. He wants to see some.
I will not be taking pictures of sharks. It means I'm in the water.
Really close up ones of sharks.
It means I'm in the water and I bleed myself. And there'll be fecal matter in the water around me. I guarantee you if I see it. Now, see, the thing is, I have swum with sharks before in the Caribbean, but those are just reef sharks, and they're completely innocuous. I mean, you have to do some really awful things to a reef shark before they would ever attack you.
You do.
So you can see them swimming around. I mean, actually, in the Caribbean, barracuda are more dangerous than sharks.
I've seen a barracuda, yes.
Melissa tried to make me feel better by saying we're only going to go to beaches with what?
Shark nets.
Which means what?
That you're protected from
No, that you need netting to protect you from the sharks.
Well, you need netting all the way along, but they can only, put the nets so far.
I'm looking forward to seeing that, just because the fear of that, because this idea that you need nets.
And then there'll be a big, and you got to get out of the water real quick.
Wait, what?
Just in case.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there's shark alarms.
The fuck are the nets for then?
Well, good question.
Okay, wait, no, wait. What do you mean there are shark alarms?
There's a big, like up at the Lifesaver station, they've got big, alarms to tell people to get out of the water. Get out of the water. It's easier than going down and everybody get out. They just have this, and then you have to get out of the water. Yes, they tear holes. Good, thank you, Dave. They tear holes in the nets.
Then they're not very good nets.
You'll be fine. I can see you chewing.
I swear to God, if that sound goes
off.
off.
I love it. Monty says to keep the shark food contained. I love it. Get those juicy humans.
Oh, God. I swear to God, if that sound goes off, I will shit myself. I swear to God, if I hear that,
I'll just pretend I don't know you.
I will be so embarrassed because it will scare the living hell out of me. I guarantee that's exactly
It's so true. See, Les is right. You're more likely to be hit by lightning bolts on the way to buying a winning lotto ticket. It's so true.
It is true.
You live here with all these big bears and cougars and things like that. You'll be fine.
But there's something about sharks that is a primal fear.
I know, right?
For human beings.
There is.
It's not only the fear, the visceral fear of being eaten alive.
Yeah.
I think part of it is because of the water. Because the water in general, because we're land animals, water is mysterious to us. We can't see under it. We don't move through it very well. We can't get under it for very long. So it's a mysterious environment. Not like your backyard where the bear can walk through. Bear.
True.
Actually, I'd be willing to say easily that bears attack more people than sharks do. Just because you're more likely to...
I don't know. Maybe we could find that out.
Someone could find that out. I'm just assuming. But even bear attacks don't scare us as much as shark attacks.
Well, we can run.
You can't
And we
from a
run
bear.
better than we swim. But I mean, you can still run.
And we have things like bear repellent and horns and that kind of stuff that we think will scare off bears, but there's no effective shark repellents.
No, you're supposed to punch them in the face.
While I'm curled up in a fetal bowl crying is not going to happen. So, but yeah, it's. I think that's part of it. What's funny?
Monty, this is the how to make Shawn scream like a girl segment of your life. He's actually terrified. Like, seriously, he is.
Understandably so. ArcSign says sharks eat Shawn's favorite little buddies in the whole wide ocean. Penguins. Actually, no, sharks don't eat as many penguins as orcas do.
No, yeah, orcas.
Or
sea lions.
Sea
lions.
Sea lions, yeah. No, I'm okay with that. That's the nature, that's the order of things. I much as I hate seeing it, I understand that penguins are food for other marine animals. I'm not, is the point I'm trying to make. I don't want to be food for other marine animals. But, yes, a lot of pictures will be taken. And I'm actually teaching Melissa more about the art of photography. Mm-hmm. And hopefully you'll get some good photos.
Yes,
too,
no,
I'm
excited about that.
We talk more about photography, and she learns more about how to take better pictures with her camera. And which reminds me, if you have any ideas for the Starting Point Photography segment, the questions that you want me to help you with, I'd be more than happy to make a segment out of it to help you figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good idea that we can walk through that stuff together.
Yes.
Speaking of which, on tonight's show, the Starting Point Photography segment is going to be about photography in winter. Light is different. As I've always said, all photography is about light. And light is different in the... What are you laughing about?
I'm just laughing.
I'm talking.
At
And
I like
just
Dave's
laughing.
funny. Oh, go ahead, Shawn King. Pretend you're on top of the food chain. I love it.
Light is different.
He likes to think he's on top of the food chain. Anyway.
We've moved on.
You asked me why I was laughing.
Light is different throughout the day and throughout the seasons. Light... here in, again, the Northern Hemisphere, our light at noon is completely different in the wintertime than it is in the summertime. At noon in summertime, it's directly overhead. At noon in the wintertime, it's on more of an angle. And so we'll talk about how to see light differently in the wintertime and also how to shoot with light in different conditions in the wintertime. For you folks in the Southern Hemisphere, you can just listen to this in 6 months and flip it around. So after that's in our Starting Point Photography segment, and then later on we're going to have our extra segment of big huge news, and then we're going to talk to and about Melissa and find out more about who she is and what she does and why she's on the show and her role here. She doesn't even know. Maybe we'll figure it out as we go along. But I think, you know what?
You didn't tell me we were going to talk about me. You didn't say that.
No, because then you
snuck that up.
Then you wouldn't have shown up.
No, I wouldn't have.
I think it's going well so far. You don't think so?
Yeah. I'm good.
You think you're doing a good job so far? You know when you make funny faces, the audience can see you.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
not even thinking about that.
Okay. Not a problem. So yeah, Starting Point Photography, more about Melissa, but up next we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about the news of the week. All that and much more coming up. This is your Mac Life. Welcome. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King, joined on the phone now by our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing? Hello. What are you laughing at?
How are you? I don't. I've been saying hello for like 5 minutes and you haven't responded.
Well, stop. There's a story. First of all, let's talk about the story of the Bloomberg report this morning. Supposedly, Bloomberg had a story. Not supposedly, they did. Bloomberg had a story saying that Apple's was lowering the yield on some of their equipment in order to get more. What did you, when you read the story initially, what did you think?
Well, the story was that they were lowering the requirements for the accuracy of Face ID.
Yes.
In order to get more phones out there.
Yes.
And I think they're just full of shit, because if Apple did that, they would run into such a PR nightmare. It would be incredible.
So you don't think it's possible? So go ahead.
No. Can you imagine if Apple put out iPhone 10s and they were not doing the face recognition? It would be just a nightmare for them.
Okay, that being the case, what makes you think that, why did Bloomberg post this story then?
Because they're Bloomberg.
For the audience who may not understand what that means, explain what because they're Bloomberg means.
Well, because they haven't had a big story in a while and they need a big story.
I think part of it is because there is no penalty for the media, certainly the tech media and the Mac media. There is no penalty for being wrong nowadays. So you can get stories that either you're completely making up or you haven't properly fact-checked, post them, get all kinds of hits, because this is a story that every single Mac website picked up on, get all kinds of hits, and suffer no penalty for it.
Right. So what is the big story for Apple right now? It's this face recognition.
Yes.
So if they can say that Apple lowered the requirements for accuracy, then that's a huge story.
Yeah.
I just don't believe that it's true because of the nightmare that Apple would have if that did happen.
Mm-hmm.
So can't see it. Just can't.
When you read the story, it is, for lack of a better term, poorly sourced. There's all kinds of statements that are made in the story. And by the way, this wasn't a Mark Gurman scoop, as some of them have been. This is by Alex Webb and Sam Kim. It's a very poorly sourced story. They very rarely even say the usual line of sources say or people familiar say. They throw out all this information with absolutely nothing backing it up. That was my first thought reading the story and thinking, this doesn't sound right. Like Jim said, it just doesn't sound right overall. But then reading the story, it sounded even less likely. So I didn't post about it. I didn't mention it. I didn't say anything about it. And then shortly thereafter, a couple hours afterwards, Apple responded with a statement sent to many media outlets. Basically, Bloomberg's claim that Apple's reduced the accuracy spec for Face ID is completely false. For those of us who've been around Apple for a long time, that was an unusual statement, wasn't it?
Well, it was an unusual statement, and it was very firm in what it said. So, if Apple had have been doing something, they would have put out a softer statement to, for PR purposes. Mm-hmm. They may have said something, but it would have been a lot softer than "this is false."
Yes. So,
obviously Apple has to do some damage control after something like this, but I believe that the damage control that they're doing is the truth.
But
I can't see Apple doing that. I just can't.
But you saying Apple needs to do damage control, again, as old timers, we recognize the fact, the unusualness of the statement is that there have been a million different rumors that Apple has never responded to, and certainly not in the days of Steve Jobs did they ever respond to any kind of rumors. And we're seeing now under Tim Cook recently, more so recently, they have started to pick and choose. Obviously, they're not responding to every single rumor that's out there, but pick and choose the stories I guess they would assume or they would feel is the most damaging to them, and responding back to them.
I don't know if that's true.
No?
I mean, look back to the Cube. They responded to the Cube cracks and said, no, they're manufacturing lines. I mean, there are things over the years that Apple has responded to that they felt were completely false.
Yeah.
And I put this in that category. I mean, when you look at the iPhone 10, there's a couple of huge things that in the iPhone 10, but I think one of the biggest is Face ID.
Yeah.
And if the reports coming out, days before the release of the iPhone 10 and Face ID are that it's not accurate, then Apple does need to respond to that, because this is the future. So I think that they had to.
So what
they had to say something.
So you're saying this is specific to? Okay, we've heard the stories that there's not going to be enough iPhones in stores. They're not going to have as many available for the Christmas holidays. Those rumors are ones you think Apple can let go, but because Face ID is going to be so important to them, that's why they responded to this particular rumor quickly.
Well, I think those claims are true. Yeah. I don't think that there will be enough, you know. So I mean, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know if Apple could have made enough of the Face ID ones. Enough of the iPhone 10s to satisfy the, I think, fairly obvious pent-up demand. It's very funny to see all these stories coming out that says, the Apple 8 isn't selling enough or isn't selling very well. The CEO of Rogers here in Canada, the cell phone company here in Canada, said that sales of the iPhone 8 were anemic, and sort of blaming Apple for this. But it made me laugh because a lot of it's on the fault of the cell phone companies themselves. Some of it is obviously people just sitting back and waiting and wanting to hold an iPhone 10 in their hands before they make a decision about the 8 or the 8 Plus or anything else like that. Do you think that's true?
Well, look, there's nothing that a cell phone company can do or Apple can do if people want to wait for the iPhone 10.
Yes.
And of course they do. I mean, there's nothing that they can do about that. And there's nothing that Apple can do about the production issues, the rumored production issues.
Yeah.
I think it's true. I believe that there are, when I say production issues, I don't mean problems. I mean that they can't make enough of them.
Yeah.
So I believe that to be true. I don't think that they're going to have enough, and they're not going to be able to satisfy demand. And, that's a terrible problem to have because they're making as much as they can. But I don't think that they'll have enough to satisfy the demand.
The asshats over at Macworld seem to be intimating that Apple is doing what they called a switch and bait, that because Apple has said that they will have iPhone 10s in store, and they're encouraging you to, as Apple said, show up early, in other words, line up, but they won't have very many. The Macworld says that this is Apple trying to, I guess, downsell those folks who want an iPhone 10 to an iPhone 8 or 8 Plus. Can you please tell me why Macworld are a bunch of idiots when it comes to this?
Well, that's just stupid.
Yeah, thank you.
that's just stupid. I mean, come on.
It makes no sense to believe that people who want to stand in line for an iPhone 10 would get to the front of the line, have an Apple employee say, "Oh, we got no 10s left," and they would go, "Okay, give me a plus." That's not going to happen. In no situation is that going to happen. If you're going to wait in line for a 10, you're going to wait for a 10.
Yeah.
I can't see anybody finding out they can't get a 10 and going, "Oh, hell with it, I'll get an 8." It's not going to happen.
Yeah. No. It's just that's a silly statement for them to make. And, Apple knows Apple's been in business for a couple of years, so they've done a few of these launches, and they know what's going to happen when people show up at the store. Now, again, I believe that there will not be enough to satisfy demand.
No.
That's just, that's what I think. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but this is what's going to happen on day 1 and day 20.
Yep.
There's just not going to be enough, So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to ramp up production and do everything that they need to do, but this is it.
Macworld says the real benefit of iPhone 10 lines will be the iPhone 8 and iPhone 8 Plus. Once customers realize they can't get an iPhone 10, an Apple specialist can swoop in to explain why the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus is just as good.
That's the stupidest story ever.
Thank you. It's just utterly idiotic to believe that customers would do that. Mac users have shown over the years, iPhone lovers have shown over the years that they will wait for the product they want. They won't take what they perceive as being second best.
No, well, and let's be honest, in some cases, phone companies have done that. Oh,
sure.
Well, we don't have the iPhone, but we have the Samsung.
Yes.
And, we'll give you a great deal on it. And it's, if you buy one, we'll give you 20 extra for your family members.
That's right.
Because that's the way that that Samsung works. Yeah. And they give them, these extra credits and pay and everything else. And you know what? Work in retail, somebody's going to give you an extra $100 per phone. I can see why people did that. Absolutely. I really can. But I think that is looking at the average consumer. I think people are a lot smarter now, and people recognize that they want the 10. So, that may work for a few people, but it's not going to be what Macworld intimates that it would be.
How about the Boy Genius Report? For the first time ever, Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak isn't going to be getting an iPhone 10 on launch day. Well, it's not it is the first time ever.
Like I care.
That's the question. Does anybody actually care? And this is not a knock on Woz. I love Woz. He's a cute little teddy bear of a guy. But does his opinion carry any weight anymore?
No.
It doesn't
matter.
I
don't care. I don't care.
It doesn't
I don't care
matter.
what Woz is doing.
That's right. I don't think anyone cares what Woz does when it comes to these kinds of stories. He
can put on his helmet and drive his little thing around town all he wants. And
have you seen him around town?
No, he can use a Nokia phone for all I care. Yeah. I could care less.
Yeah.
But to be perfectly honest with you, I could care less what anybody uses.
True.
I know that I want to get an iPhone 10, and I will get an iPhone 10 at some point, and that's that.
Yeah. So
I don't care if you get one. I don't care if anybody gets one. That's what I'll get.
Wait a second. Are you saying that let's say you weren't in the position that you're in, that of a person who's going to get an iPhone 10 for review? Are you saying reviews?
Well, we don't know that.
Oh, I think I've heard from a little birdie that you're getting one. The UPS will be at your door. Well, I'm going to guess tomorrow.
Well, you know a whole lot more than what I do. I'll tell you that.
Which isn't the first time, by the way. But let's take that out of the equation. Would a review, either good or bad, of the iPhone 10, you're saying that wouldn't sway your opinion?
I have learned with a lot of different gear over the years that my way of using something is completely different than somebody else's way of
sure.
using something. So whether it be music gear, a Mac, an iPhone, iPad, whatever. I mean, if I read the reviews of everything and made my purchasing decisions solely based on that, I probably would own a pen and a piece of paper. You know, because everybody has a problem somewhere along the line.
Yes.
Are they my problems? No, they're not. Are they techie problems? Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. But they're not my problems.
Mm.
So most of these gadgets and everything else work great for me, for what I do. And so, no, the reviews aren't going to sway me that much.
Yeah.
If I look at something and, you know, if I see everybody mentioning one thing, then okay, can that thing be fixed in software? Yes, it can. Okay, then it'll be fixed. That's wipe that one out. That's not a big thing.
Yeah.
If it's a hardware thing, well, okay, maybe we got a bigger problem here.
The reviews of the Google Pixel are a prime example of that. That a lot of the reviews were fairly positive, except for the screen. That the screen looked kind of weird in photographs. But now it seems, and some sites have pulled the reviews because of this, it seems like those screens have got a serious burn-in issue. In that regard, if that happened with the iPhone 10, yes, that would definitely make me stop and not get an iPhone 10 until I heard differently. But yeah, I'm with you. For the most part, I'll read all the reviews and I'll make notes of the good and bad. But I think I don't know if the word is mature enough or smart enough to have already done enough independent analysis to make me say, yeah, I want the iPhone 10. I'm going to get the iPhone 10, regardless of what review Jim posts or Gruber posts or any of the other usual suspects post.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, people know how I do a review. They know how my review differs from Gruber's review. And people will probably read both and take different bits from each one and decide, you know, yes, I want this or no, I don't. You know, we know that Gruber doesn't like the notch in the iPhone 10. From my limited experience with an iPhone 10, the notch didn't really bother me as much as it bothered other people. Yeah. You know, I'll have to actually sit down and use it in order to find out. Maybe the notch will be completely annoying to me.
Sure, yeah.
And, you know, or maybe it'll be like it was, and I just don't care.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out.
I think a lot of people are going to be in the same shoes that I'm at, where I want to see the iPhone 10 in person. I actually want to see all three of them in person. I'm unlikely to get an iPhone 8, so it'll be between the Plus and the 10, and I want to hold them in my hands and look at them and see the notch and see the camera. I think that's why, contrary to what the CEO of Rogers says, that's why, at least here in Canada, sales of the 8 and possibly the 8 Plus aren't as good. We don't know here in Canada. Rogers has not told us how much these things are going to cost. So I don't know whether I can afford the 10 or not.
Well, I got an iPhone 8 for review.
Yep.
So I love the iPhone 8. The extra power and the AR and everything that's in the iPhone 8. I love this phone. That's what I'm talking to you on right now, is an iPhone 8. I love this phone. But even if I bought an iPhone 8, I would still buy an iPhone 10 because that is the future. And that's kind of the world that we live in, isn't it? I mean, me and you and the people listening to this podcast, they're kind of, I'm not going to say we're on the bleeding edge, but we're kind of on the edge because I still need my stuff to work. If I can't afford to buy a gadget that doesn't work. can be cute, but
The irony of Jim saying that.
like we talked last week.
The irony of you saying you can't afford things that don't work, and yet the audio signal of your phone just kept dropping. Didn't you hear anything you said for the last 30 seconds?
Huh. Well, you know what I have to say to that?
No, what, Jim?
I will text you.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, but we get the gist of what you're saying. But I think a lot of folks are taking a wait and see attitude, and but that being said, as Jim said earlier, you're not going to, unless you get one via pre-order, you are going to have to be very, very lucky to get one in store anytime between now and, I got to say, the new year. I don't think Apple will have caught up to production by the time Christmas rolls around. I don't think that if you're expecting to give or get an iPhone 10 under your Christmas tree, that's likely to happen unless you get one pre-ordered on Friday evening.
Well, here's the thing. We've known for a while, or we've heard for a while, Apple clearly knew long before that,
yes,
that there are production issues. So if they're able to get those fixed, maybe they're already getting them fixed.
Yeah, yeah.
And if that's the case, they may be able to do something by Christmas.
Yeah.
They may be.
Yep. Yeah, I guess it depends on where in the production.
I just can't see it happening.
No.
But, yeah.
I think because of the
it's going to be tough.
I think because of the complication of Face ID, that whole front element of it is, it's understandable that if it's true that Apple can't get enough yields of this thing, no, they're not going to lower the quality of it. They'll just sell fewer of them, knowing full well that if you want an iPhone 10, you will wait to get an iPhone 10. You won't wait a year, but you'll wait till after Christmas, the New Year. I think people would get really upset if by the end of January, maybe mid-February, if you couldn't walk into the store by then and get one. If they had the same issues that AirPods did, where they were unavailable for weeks and months after the introduction, then we might have a problem. But I think if you can walk into the store by mid-February and get an iPhone 10, I think this whole issue is going to blow over.
Well, and that's what I was just going to bring up. The AirPods.
Yep.
You know, that's been an issue.
Yep.
You know, and
but at least with AirPods, we had other options. You know, with AirPods, I could go with Beats or other wireless headphones or earphones. When it comes to the iPhone 10, I don't think people who want the iPhone 10 have other options. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Moving on, Apple's new TV shows will be family.
This wouldn't be the first time. Okay, hold on. This wouldn't be the first time that Apple has had some production issues.
No, not at all. Won't be the last time either.
And they've overcome them. So
yeah, I'm not
okay. Moving on.
I'm not hugely worried about it, but it is something to keep an eye on. Moving on, Apple's new TV shows will be family friendly. You and I talked about this, I think about 2 months ago when we first heard that Apple was going to be throwing buckets and buckets of money at the original content issue for the Apple TV or for iTunes. How do you feel about this, that Apple is seemingly going to a G rating or at least a PG rating on any new content?
Well, you know, I said, this is what I was worried about.
Yep.
You know, does Apple want to do a breakout type of series like Game of Thrones, like, you know, Breaking Bad, all of these ones, that are not your typical network stations, it appears from this story, no, that's not what they want to do. What they want to do instead is do a G rating network type of show.
Yep.
And I just think that that's more difficult for them than what they need right now. I mean, if they decide in, how many years, like 3 years or 5 years, wait a minute, we're not getting the traction we wanted.
Yep.
Well, then they're another 3 years behind Netflix and Amazon in trying to get the shows that they should have done in the first place.
Yep.
So that's the part that worries me a bit about this whole thing.
I think a lot of it's going to be Apple's damned if they do and damned if they don't. I don't think...
Well, yeah, that could be.
I think it's less... My initial inclination was to think that it was still the prudity of Steve Jobs still left over, but I think we're past that now. I think Apple's looking at the size of the market. Remember, Apple is a consumer electronics company now, and they want to sell to the broadest, widest market they can. And that's G-rated. G-rated means everybody can watch it. If you make an R-rated show, you're limiting who can watch your show. You're limiting it to, obviously, adults. And I've heard from many, many adults who have children, there's not enough good G-rated content out there. It's Disney and nobody else. So parents, the ones with the money...
Well, then they need to stop having kids.
Now somebody on the Loop website just stop procreating. Someone on the Loop website, Glorung Quina, I don't get the name, has a really good point. As someone who's rather tired of the endless blood, tits, and scowling dramas being pushed out by HBO and Netflix, I welcome the idea of someone making good, high-quality shows that don't depend on R-rated sex and violence to sell themselves. That's a good point.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that it's R-rated sex and violence. I mean, sure, there are some shows like that, but I don't think that was Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad had a wonderful storyline. It was unique and it was great. And, there are other shows like that had great storylines and great.
Lost Jim again. We'll wait.
I'm here.
You said that if other people had great storylines.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. If you follow up from where you said if other people had great storylines.
What? What?
The last thing you said that we heard was if other people had great storylines. So what were you talking about storylines?
Hold on. Can you hear me or no?
Yes, I can hear you, Jim. We can all hear you. Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Now, are you walking around under the bridge again? You can't get too close to the abutments because there's too much.
I am not. I was standing still. I was standing still. The phone is sitting in one place.
You still using the AirPods?
God.
Yeah, I know.
I am.
Glorung also says, though, on the other hand, if Apple means they're going to only produce stuff that's as blandly inoffensive as broadcast network shows, I'm not going to be interested in watching. I think that's the balancing act Apple's going to have to try to find between tits and ass of HBO and Netflix and boring stuff. And yes, there is a large middle ground there. And I think from the people that Apple's hired, it feels like they could probably fill in a lot of that middle ground. Do you think they're capable of it?
Okay, so here's, to me, is to hire all these execs that they're hiring for decide whether something is too raunchy or not.
Yes.
Or hire it's a G-rated show, fine. If it's an X-rated show or R, but let these people do what, I mean, Apple is hiring them for a reason from Sony and from all these other companies. Let them do their jobs.
Yeah. Just make good TV.
Just make. People should do.
Yep.
Now, again, if that means that whoever network type TV show, cool, great. But if they could have made something better, stop this and tell the people that are complaining to stop having.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Folks, we're talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He's here each and every week. Thanks, Jim. See you, buddy. Bye-bye. Yeah, that was annoying. That was really, really annoying. And the problem is I can't fix it. There's nothing to fix. I don't think it's our internet connection because you guys can hear me just fine. I don't think it's so frustrating. Talk over a landline. Well, neither of us have landlines, so I don't think it's even possible to talk over a landline. So, we'll have to see. So anyway, just trying to get the co-host in training to come back to be here. Hang on a second. Co-host in training coming. Hang on. We're waiting. Your mic's up. Turn your mic on.
Sorry.
What are you sorry about? What are you sorry about?
For being late.
Okay. Oh, I know what I wanted you to do. Hang on. Hang on a second. Hang on. Sorry, mics were down there for a second. So for those folks who have tuned in late, the part of if you heard me tease you on Twitter, part of the big, huge, massive news is the cute little one over there. The little Melissa person is the co-hostess. I hate that word. Co-host in training. So she is going to be here, and if you like. And if we all like each other, and if you like her, and I like her, and she likes us, then she can stay, and she'll be the. I've always said, I'm not doing this just Melissa. I'm not doing this just because you're cute. It's a good reason. I'm not doing this because you have a great voice. Hang on, I can turn your mic off. I'm not doing this simply for. I'm doing this because I hate sitting here talking to myself. Why am I suddenly hearing myself in a weird?
So you're doing it for selfish reasons.
Absolutely. It's
entirely altruistic. No, is that the word? Altruistic, or is it the opposite? Yeah.
It's not. It's. I've always said the show is not as interesting to me without a co-host, someone to talk to.
Right.
Someone who can talk to me and who can help out with, reading the IRC chat room and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to find somebody who is compatible with the tone of the show. Someone who can be fun and funny and interesting and interested. So one of the reasons, as I've said to Melissa, she is, and this is not an insult in any way, shape, or form, this is, you are the voice of the newbie or voice of the average user on the show. And it's going to be your job to represent the average users, asking questions. And if I say something that doesn't make any sense to you, it's probably going to not make sense to other people too. So that's when you ask questions. Hey, Shawn, what did you mean by that? Greg Gare. It's past 6:15. Yours big news, big guy. Some people.
Oh yeah.
They're so demanding. So that's half of the big news. The other half is the fact that I've got a co-host, which I love. I love having a co-host. I loved it when Ian and Bill were co-hosts. I loved it when Jay was a co-host back in Nashville. So I like having a co-host on the show. But that's just half of the big news. The other half of the big news is you ready?
Ready.
You see what I'm doing here?
Yeah.
Okay, you can do the same thing?
You ready?
All right.
You go first.
No, we do it at the same time.
Okay, ready?
3, 2,
1.
Closer.
Like there?
Those are wedding rings.
They are.
I asked her, and she said,
Sure. I said sure.
Yay! Yay!
They're titanium.
They're getting married.
Stronger than steel.
Get married.
Woohoo!
To the cute Australian girl. I'm so lucky.
So he doesn't have to pay me.
You can move your hand down.
All right.
The cute Australian girl said yes, that she would marry me. And I could not be happier. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I've been dying to tell you guys this for just
I know.
a year. Just
Yes.
No, not that long.
Isn't it great? It's great, huh?
And in a week's time too.
Oh my God. I
'Cause
know. Well,
my initial plan in my small caveman brain was that I was going to do it in Australia. But then we realized her son Damon, who was in Iceland last week and is now in Scotland right now, wouldn't have been able to be there. And so we decided we're going to do it before we go to Australia. We go to Australia on December 8th. Damon comes back when?
he's not back till December 1st.
December 1st. So sometime between the 1st and the 8th, I got to get married.
But then everyone in Australia has plans now, too.
Yes, absolutely. And plus, she's pregnant. So I got
Oh, my God. Blech. Someone shoot me now.
No, she's not.
No. That ain't happening.
Dave D. Congrats to you, Shawn. My sympathies, Melissa. Thank you very much.
Oh, Dave.
Fuck you.
I like Dave's fun. He's funny.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
Someone, Les says that you have to learn a whole new language. We're trying. He's getting there. He's trying to learn Australian.
No, I'm not.
No, he's not.
No, I'm not.
By osmosis.
All I need to know is what not to say in Australia. Because as everyone knows, I have a tendency.
You don't say I can feel a 4X coming on.
What does that mean?
Never mind.
Okay. I will not say shrimp on the Barbie or anything along those lines. That would be stupid. So we're registered at the Apple Store. No, we're not. I'm kidding. We're not registered at the Apple Store. So, yeah, get married.
You're getting hitched. He's getting hitched.
After the first one, someone said, doesn't this experience sour you on marriage? I said, yeah, it sours me on marriage to crazy people. She's not crazy.
He doesn't know that yet.
She's wonderful and sweet and kind and loving and smart and funny and drop dead gorgeous. You guys have no idea. These cameras do not do her justice. It's not even close.
Oh, my God.
Like multiple. If you think she's pretty on camera now, multiple by 10 in real life. She has no flaws. I'm just saying that right now. For the record, not a flaw. Not a single. Well, one.
What's that? I'll try and fix it. What is it?
You're a parrot. Really weird habit.
Procrastinator.
She has this really weird habit of repeating what I just said. It's very funny, but it's just odd.
Everything you say though is so compelling.
Dave D says, and you hid her when I was in Vancouver. No, when you were in Vancouver, Dave, we were living, or she was living here on the Sunshine Coast and has a real job. What is your real job, by the way?
Well, I'm a pediatric occupational therapist.
What does that mean?
Quite a
for those
mouthful,
who,
isn't
what
it?
is that?
Well, I have a degree in rehab medicine. Well, it was rehab medicine at the time. Now it's rehab sciences. And I happen to go into working with children, working with special needs children and their families. Well, no, now I work in the schools.
When you say special needs, are we talking physical, mental, developmental? What kind of special needs?
All of it. Not so much mental health.
Okay.
but physical and cognitive and all of that.
That sounds like an immensely stressful job.
It is a stressful job.
It sounds like a job that I literally could not do, because children in pain just destroy me. How do you get through that?
Oh, they're not always in pain.
Well, children who aren't, for lack of a better term, and I don't mean it the way it's going to come out, children who aren't normal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, I do.
Like your friend Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah is, she follows me on Instagram, and her and I have chatted via Instagram a couple of times.
Yeah.
And she sounds lovely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about her. She texted me on Instagram, and I texted her back, and we teased, and we had fun. It was great. Mm-hmm. And then you tell me about Sarah.
Oh, Sarah is a shining light.
But physically?
Oh, she's extremely limited physically. She can't speak. She can't eat. She has to be helped with everything. But she's incredible. She's an inspiration to us all.
Yeah, that's the way you describe her.
Yeah.
She's in a wheelchair. She
has cerebral palsy.
Cerebral palsy. So again, I don't want to be offensive, and if I am, please tell me. It seems like she's Stephen Hawking's. Is she in that sort of situation?
She's incredibly articulate with her device.
Yes.
She's she sort of breaks the mold a little bit with her quite a bit with her device that she speaks with. Yeah, she's very bright. She wants to be a writer.
And that's what kills me. That's what whenever I see that kind of stuff, it literally makes me question God. Like, why would you take this wonderful person who's obviously intelligent and sweet and kind and do that to them? How do you get through that psychologically? You see these kids on a day by day by day, hour by hour basis.
I think the hardest time in my career was working with the little ones when the family's still in deep mourning as well. But as they grow and as they learn and as they hit school and as they get on with their lives, the families adapt, and many of them would probably tell you it was a gift.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. Some of them have passed away very young. That's sad.
Yes, that'd be very hard too, because I can tell from who you are, you would develop an emotional attachment.
Oh,
to
you
these
do.
kids.
When you do.
You're not supposed to, but you do.
No, you do. You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm very blessed. I have an incredible career.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Greg Gare says, we got to spend the day with Melissa and Shawn in Vancouver last month. She is such a wonderful person. Not sure why she said yes.
It was so nice to spend time with
I feel
Greg
the same
and
way,
Susan
Greg.
and Logan.
Greg says, Melissa, you realize that you are now responsible for following the big doofus and picking up all the cameras, iPhones, MacBook, Pixel.
Oh, my God. Oh, I didn't think about that, Greg.
Yeah, you already had that experience, haven't you?
I have.
Me leaving shit behind.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that.
Dave D says, Greg, isn't that what Susan does for you? Ha!
This Dave D, he's a funny guy.
He is. Actually, no, Greg, because Greg's not nearly as bad as I am. The worst person in the world for just walking away from stuff. It's just ridiculous how often, how tens of thousands of dollars of gear I've walked away from in my life. It's ridiculous. There's something you mentioned before. So next, what's the date today? Today is the 25th.
The 25th today.
So Halloween is next Tuesday.
Yes.
Now, you didn't have Halloween when you were a kid in Australia, did you?
No. We didn't do trick-or-treating or anything like that.
Was there any sort of acknowledgement of Halloween, October 31st in Australia?
Just when we became crazy teenagers and young adults, then we had big parties.
So we assume here in North America that our celebrations are universal. Mm-hmm. And I would have thought that Australians did
Not
Halloween
when I was
we
growing.
did.
Not when I was growing up.
When you're growing up, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Les Posen, who's in the IRC chat room,
yeah.
who's in Sydney, will tell us whether
if it's caught on.
Caught on now, because it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
Les says it's all over the place now. But as we were talking about Halloween costumes last night, I told her I stopped trick-or-treating when I was 12. Because at the age of 12, I was 6'1", and we were poor, so all my mom could afford was the plastic mask. So you'd get like a Batman mask or a Superman mask, whatever it was, and I'd put the mask on. I'd walk to the neighbor's place and walk around and knock, 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 ding dong, trick or treat. Go away, mister.
I know.
I'm not a mister. I'm just a kid. You're a mister. No, look, I'm just a kid. And it was just so crushing for me to have all these adults be mean to me and not give me candy. That was the last time I dressed up for Halloween.
Well,
I
you
hate
say
the
that.
holiday since.
I know, but you've had that experience, and now that's it. You've written it off.
Absolutely.
Les says it's all over the place now. Yeah. So there you go.
So you were telling me about you getting dressed up in costumes, chicken costumes, and orangutan costumes, and things like that. But that wasn't for Halloween.
Oh, no.
Melissa's about to tell you a story of a job she had that I don't know of any other human being who's ever had this job. You used to do...
I was saving to go overseas.
Yes, as all Australians do.
And yeah, that's right. And I moonlighted as a singing telegram.
You were an actual singing telegram person.
So I was a harem girl, and I was a flim flam girl, and I was an orangutan, and I was a chicken. Yes.
So you actually... Yeah. I've never done it.
It's crazy.
I've never seen it. So how does that work? So you're sitting at home. Do you go in for like an 8-hour shift, or do you sit at home wait for them to call you?
It was you kind of were given assignments, right? So these are your assignments for tonight, and these are your songs, and these are the tunes that you're going to sing them to, and you'd have to go into restaurants or parties or.
If you went into a restaurant, how'd you know which person was the right one?
I forget how that worked.
They give you a picture of the person?
Maybe there was someone looking for you, or they'd meet you at the front. I forget. And then you'd have this little whistle. And then the person would be so embarrassed. Everybody would be focused
hell
on
yes.
Yeah.
How did you get through the embarrassment?
I don't know, because I'm actually really shy. I'm really shy. I can't believe I did it for the money, which wasn't great either.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did it for the money. There you go.
That
was my Halloween experience, getting dressed up.
What else will she do for me?
Depends how much.
Fair point, yeah. 'Cause me too.
That's right.
But yeah, so you were, did you have all the costumes at home, or did you go into the office to get the costumes?
Oh, no, I think I had them. I had those costumes.
So you had a chicken
so
costume.
I had to change, in the car, depending on what they wanted. Or maybe they would let me change where it was, like depending where I was, I could get changed.
So you had a chicken costume that you drove your car to.
Yeah, I guess I just took the head off or something. Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, that was such a long time ago.
Bizarre.
It is bizarre.
That is just
isn't
such
it?
a weird. Like I said, I've never.
What a weirdo!
I've never heard of anyone else doing singing telegrams. That's
really.
I've never heard of any.
I don't think you liked me anymore when I told you that. You
Well,
kind of looked at me weird, like, "Whoa, I didn't know about that.
Well,
I didn't know about this girl."
It's only because of you just admitted what you would do for money.
Oh.
So if you're willing to debase yourself in that
so you're
manner,
wondering,
what else are you willing to do for money, and how much money do I have to pay you?
Well, do you want the harem girl? Do you want the orangutan? Do you want the
Was
chicken?
it different prices for different costumes?
I don't remember.
How much did you get paid? Do you remember? Did you get paid by the telegram?
I think I got paid by the telegram, not by the hour.
So the more telegrams you did, what was the most number of telegrams you did in a day?
Probably I think I did 5 in one evening once.
One evening. They were all evening things?
Yes, usually.
So you never went to offices or anything?
No.
What a funny gig.
I didn't.
Why wouldn't you worked at McDonald's or something like that? Being shy, why would you think singing telegrams?
No, I was older then, though. I was driving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you can 17 years old, you can work at McDonald's.
I don't know. Perhaps I thought that was beneath me.
Working at McDonald's is beneath you. Being a chicken.
Right? I know.
Singing telegrams in restaurants is not beneath you.
There's no rational thought.
There is not. So the reason why I was bringing up Halloween, I found this great article and because of the marriage thing that's going to happen between this cute little girl and me. Find love with these old Halloween fortune-telling tricks. So apparently, these are the way people found love back in the day. One of the things you could do is acquire a newborn baby, encourage it to sip from a bowl. Afterwards, return the baby. Retain the bowl and fill it with water. Then cut all 26 letters of the alphabet from a newspaper or magazine. Place the papers into the bowl. Leave it to sit overnight. The next morning, blindfold yourself. Dip your hand into the bowl. Pull out the same number of slips as letters in your name. Using those slips, you should be able to spell the name of your future spouse. That's idiotic.
That is weird.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
This is a Newfoundland here in Canada way of finding out your future spouse's name.
Huh.
That's ridiculous. Another way, eat an entire salted herring, bones and all, in 3 bites. Do not drink water. Go to bed. In your dreams, prophetic visions of your future spouse shall appear.
From salted herring.
Find a blackberry bush. Crawl underneath the branches.
Ooh.
In the moonlight, you may find the shadow of your future beloved.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, if I'm under a blackberry bush and see a shadow, I'm going to freak the hell out. I'm going to freak. Some guy comes up to you and goes, hey, what are you doing over there? Ah! That doesn't seem to be a good idea for me at all. Procure 2 apple seeds. Wet the seeds. Designate 1 seed for love interest A and the second seed for love interest B. Here's where it gets weird. Press the seeds against your eyelids. Wait. The first apple seed to fall will indicate the least faithful of the 2 suitors.
Whoa.
That also seems to be a bit dim, doesn't it?
Yes.
Strap on a blindfold. Begin searching for kale. Now, I would look forever because I wouldn't know what kale looked like. Upon finding the vegetable, attempt to pull the kale from the dirt. The shape of the kale's root shall foretell your future. A straight stalk foretold a tall, straight, handsome mate. And dirt clinging to the kale promised money.
Oh. Not both.
I love these things because I'm always curious as to how these came about.
I know.
You know, what was the legends or events that led up
Yes.
to someone saying, "Oh yeah, this is how to find out."
Drunken escapades.
It was probably, yeah. Spread a fine layer of cornmeal near your bed. Sleep. In the morning, the name of your future spouse will be scribbled in the powder. That would screw me up.
That's
not
weird.
something you want to do.
No.
Don't do that. That would freak you. Can you imagine?
I would not marry that person's name that was in there.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. That's right. That's just weird.
Ooh, I don't like that one.
Find a field in which the furrows run north to south. I'd be screwed there because I couldn't tell the difference.
Okay.
Wait for dark. Enter the field from the west and walk over 11 furrows. Stop at the 12th, wait, and listen for your fortune. If you hear sobbing, you'll die early.
Oh, that's so freaky.
The hell? Why would you want to do that?
I don't know.
Stand in the middle of the field listening, and if you hear sobbing, it's probably me because I don't want to be there.
Well, you're under the blackberry bush with
Exactly,
some guy
that's
hovering
right.
over you.
Jeez. Some of these are
Weird.
so
Ooh.
weird. Buy a knife and find a field of leeks. Again, I wouldn't know what a field of leeks look like. At night, walk backwards through the field. Stab one of the leeks with the knife. Hide, then watch. According to Celtic lore, your future spouse will walk through the field, pick up the knife, and chuck it in the middle of the garden.
Oh. A lot of them are spooky.
No
really
kidding.
spooky. You know?
Some of them are utterly creepy, and I would never, ever do them.
And so they're all, you say Celtic. They're all Celtic.
No,
or
not
some
all
of them were from.
Some of them are, yeah. Monty says, and yet people wonder why there were witch hunts in the Dark Ages. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, really.
At midnight, scoop up a heaping spoonful of salt, insert it in your mouth, do not swallow. Okay, I'm not doing that.
No.
Then light a candle, grab a mirror, and while holding both candle and mirror in your hands, begin walking backwards. Watch the mirror. You'll see the face of your future spouse staring back at you. Oh. No! Again, no!
No.
I'd spit salt everywhere.
Yes. And you're supposed to love this person that appears and
Just
think that you're going to spend
deeply
forever
weird
with them.
and creepy
Ew.
things. Let's move on. As I said earlier, the lovely and talented Melissa over here is just starting to become more interested in photography. I think it's because of my influence.
Of course.
It took way too long. Okay, it took way too long. And one of the things, because of the season we're headed into here in North America, as I've always said, photography is about light. It's about taking pictures of light, about capturing light. And so you have to start paying attention to the varying ways light, for lack of a better term, appears. Whether it shows up quickly, whether it shows up over time, whether it shows up through clouds or through rain or mist or fog or bright sunlight or anything along those lines. Because light is the most important thing in photography. And the kind and quality of light dictates how your image is going to look. And here, again, in the Northern Hemisphere, this time of year, because of the way the sun doesn't rise to straight overhead at noon, it's much more slanted. The light hits things differently. It's less harsh. It's less bright. Plus, you generally get a lot more clouds, a lot more overcast conditions. So one of the problems you have, and also, by the way, as we all know, you get less light. You have less hours of sunlight. I think the sun rises at 7 o'clock our time and sets about 5 o'clock our time, 5:30. So you've just got fewer hours of sunlight. So you're indoors more often. You're taking pictures of family events that are indoors. You've only got maybe the Christmas tree lights to shoot. Maybe you only got an overhead light to shoot. So what you want to start doing is, as I've always said, start looking for this kind of light. Start looking for this light that you can take advantage of. And the easiest way to do that is to look for, say you're indoors. Look for where the light is coming from, and then either manipulate the person. If you want a pose shot, you can tell the person, hey, go stand over there by that light, or wait for someone to walk into that light. Same thing with outdoors. Find good light and either have the person you're shooting stand in that light, or wait for, if you're doing street photography, wait for someone to walk through that light. One of the things I like doing especially at night, is the idea, if I'm doing street photography, is finding the good light, walking around until I find the light, and then waiting for someone to walk into it. Standing far enough back so that people will have access to the light. I don't want to stand in the light myself like a big old creep. You want to stand a distance away, not too far away, and just wait for people to come into your light. If you are at home and you want to take pictures of family and friends, it's something that you are going to be doing in Australia, is we're going to be sitting around tables, having a beer, and you're going to want to take pictures. And it's going to be important for you to not just take snapshots, not just click, but to think about something you and I talked about on the weekend. Think about the image and how you want it to come out. And then manipulating yourself or the person into the light that you want. Mm-hmm. I showed Melissa an example of, she's got a very, very handsome uncle. And she wants to take pictures of him because he's a very, very good-looking guy. And I said, well, one of the things that is going to happen is we're going to be sitting at a kitchen table somewhere, and you're going to want to take a picture of this guy. And you can just pick the camera up and take a picture. Probably won't be very good. But if you stop and think about the light that's hitting his face and where it's coming from and how it's hitting his face, you can manipulate him either consciously for him or unconsciously to get his face in better light. And one of the things you would do is look for light coming in from a window, because usually window light, as long as the sun's not directly coming through the window, is going to be a little softer, a little more muted and better light. And I showed Melissa, when I took a picture of you straight on, you had that shadow straight on your face. The light was coming from the window. She's looking straight at me, and so this side of her face was dark and this side of her face was light. And it's a very simple matter. Just ask the person, turn their chin towards the light, and then you stand over there and you'll get a much better picture. The other thing you do is go stand in the place where you know it's going to be a good shot and just wait for that person to turn their head. We're human beings. We're always moving around. So wait for them to turn into the light the way that you want them to. And if they're taking too long, I do this for kids all the time. It's not babies, but children. You get the shot set up. You have your aperture setting. All your settings are done correctly. and then you stand there and wait. And then if the kid isn't doing it, just snap your fingers. It only work once, but just do something to get the kid to turn their head, and that's when you snap that picture. And it's kind of a posed, unposed kind of shot. So look for window light. Window light in the wintertime is a great kind of light. The other thing is accept the low light conditions. Don't try to go outside and take beautiful, bright, shiny pictures. You're not going to get them. Go and take moody pictures. Go and take snowy pictures, rainy pictures. Go and take pictures of water dripping off of leaves. Go and take pictures of moss. Use the environment and use that kind of light to create those kinds of images. Don't try to force the image in your head onto the scene. Take a picture of the scene. It's going to be a moody scene. It's going to be a dark, mossy, wet scene. So take those kinds of pictures. When it comes to setting up your camera, again, like I always say, light is the most important thing. And what did I tell you about aperture? What is a big aperture versus a small aperture?
The fraction numbers, you mean?
Yes.
Well, so 1 is completely open, and then 4 is a quarter, or 2 is a half, or 8 is an eighth.
So the bigger the number.
So the bigger the number, the more light you're letting in.
The bigger the aperture number.
Oh, the bigger the aperture number, the less light you'll be letting in.
It's the exact opposite, which is why you said it was so confusing.
Yes. But the fraction way of explaining it helped me.
Exactly.
I was fine after that.
So when you hear f-stops, F4, F5, F6, get rid of the F and put a 1 there. And think of it that as not F4, but as 1/4. Not as F8, think of it as 1/8. And that'll help you visualize it more. If it's F1, that's 1/1, so that means your aperture is completely wide open. F4 is 1/4, so your aperture is a quarter of the size. And that's how much light you're letting in. Well, if you're shooting light, and there's not much light, whether it be indoors or outdoors, you want your aperture to be as wide open as you can.
Mm-hmm.
To let the camera gather as much light as it can in those conditions. So in general, in the winter or in low light conditions, you're going to be using a very small F number, F4, F3, F5, whatever the lowest you can get. So think of that. Whenever you're shooting in low light conditions, make your aperture as low as it possibly can. Mm-hmm. Low light, low aperture.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you see the light. You see the light around you. You see the light where it's coming from. And then use that light to create the images that you want. Your camera is set to low light, so low aperture number. The problem is you then have to, on low light conditions, keep an eye on your shutter speed too. Even if you're in aperture priority mode. Aperture priority mode tells the camera, I'm going to set the aperture, and you figure out shutter speed. Well, the camera might make the shutter speed too slow. If you're in dark conditions and say you're using a kit lens and the lowest aperture it can go is 4.5, you might set it to 4.5, but the light might be so low that the camera says, well, at 4.5 I can only get a half-second exposure. I'll only open for half a second and then I'll close. Well, you can't hold your camera steady for half a second. So there's a couple of different ways of fixing that. You can prop yourself up against something. You can use a tripod. You can make yourself as steady as you possibly can. But in low light conditions, with a low shutter speed, this is when I tell folks, increase your ISO. ISO is a measure of the light sensitivity of your camera. And you can increase on the iPhone. There's not the native iPhone app, but there's other apps that you can get on your iPhone that will allow you to increase the light sensitivity of the sensor. So it's generally going to be at 200, crank it up to 800 or even 1600. Doesn't matter what the numbers mean, but just crank it up real high. On your DSLR, same thing. Crank it up to 1600 and see if by increasing the light sensitivity of your sensor, you can decrease the shutter speed. So if you increase your light sensitivity to, say, 1600, maybe your shutter speed drops to 1/100th of a second, in which you can handhold. That takes a bit of practice. Takes a bit of experience of, hey, I know in these lighting conditions with this camera and this lens, I can shoot this ISO. But give it a try. Play around with it and practice it and see if you can't nail those things down. But so remember, low light, low aperture number, and increase your ISO.
I like the way Monty says it too.
Into the microphone.
Big-
Stop. In the microphone.
Monty says, big number, little opening, little number, big opening.
Yeah, that's whatever way you can remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's that, for the other thing I use for aperture is how many things do you want in focus, and that's your aperture number. So if I just want Melissa in focus, one thing, then my aperture is as close to 1 as I can get. If I'm shooting a group picture, there's a bunch of people, I want my aperture as high as I can get. So few things, low aperture number, lots of things, higher aperture number.
But what was the name of the graph that shows you the distribution
The
of light?
histogram.
Okay, the histogram I found resonated with me.
Really?
Because you don't realize, like I was looking at the histogram when you were instructing me to do so, and there were pieces of light in the scene that you don't think about with just your naked eye.
Yeah.
And so the histogram is telling
Okay. You know
that
what?
that lamp way back in the distance there is a hot spot that's going to affect your photograph.
Good. That's something we'll do on next week's show.
Okay.
We'll do histograms because if that helped you, well, then it will help other people.
It helped me.
That's good. I'm just going to wrap this up because I know. What do I know? Oh, now I'm going to ask your permission on this, as my now fiance. Should we, as a couple, beg the audience for money?
No.
I have no pride. I will beg for money if you will allow me.
For what?
Wedding gifts.
No.
Why not?
I didn't, because it just doesn't seem ethical or appropriate.
Really?
Yeah.
You wouldn't like something pretty for your wedding?
I'm good.
Are you sure?
Well, yeah. You mean something to do with, what do you mean? What are you asking for?
Well, we would beg the audience to send us money, and then we would spend the money. Why is it so hard for her?
I've never begged anyone for money before.
Oh, I do it all the time. I've been doing it for 23 years.
Darling, if you want to do that, you go for it.
No, it's going to be something we both do.
Oh, you mean I have to beg
Yes,
too?
absolutely.
And how do you intend on begging? You mean like...
Watch. This is just a run through.
Oh
Okay?
my
This is just off the top of my head. I'm getting married. Send me money. How would that work? No?
No.
Not tactful enough?
No, it's not subtle. You're subtle as a sledgehammer is what you are.
So I got to be subtle.
Well, for you, that's not an easy thing.
Okay.
You're not naturally a subtle person.
How about
at all.
we're getting married. Please send us money?
No.
That wasn't subtle?
Yeah, see, begging isn't Melissa's job. See, Mo's right. Just ask, perhaps, instead of begging, says Les. Just ask. It's not my job, says Mo. Not my job. My job.
Fine.
I'm not
just
getting paid
thought
for this, you guys.
I just thought it'd be a good idea. Because we have to buy an iPhone 10 before I go to Australia.
I know that. I know. So I'm gonna get some. I'm not gonna upgrade hardly at all. You're the one that's gonna get the iPhone.
Well, you
10.
wanted to get an iPhone 7 though, because you don't feel like you need.
Oh yeah,
the
no.
iPhone
I
8.
don't need I don't need any more capacity.
Yeah.
Really, I don't.
And the iPhone 7 screen would be big enough for you,
A bigger screen
and the
would be kind of
camera
nice.
would be
I
good
think.
enough for you.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
but
need.
Melissa is not a nerd, not a techie, and you don't need the latest and greatest stuff.
I'm a very just utilitarian user. I don't go into all of the.
And this is something we'll talk about on future shows too. Is that Melissa is an average user, but she also makes average user mistakes. You know,
All the time.
No. I don't mean that as a dig, but
No.
I think it was I want to say a month ago. I said, "Hey Melissa, there's a new version of the operating system for your iPhone, iOS 11. Don't install it." Because I wanted to wait to make sure everything was going to be okay, and there wasn't anything in it really that she needed to have on her phone. And you have an iPhone, I think it's a 5.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that the iPhone iOS 11 didn't slow down your iPhone 5. And about a week ago, she looks at her phone and goes, "What the hell is this?" What's wrong? It looks weird.
Well, I
It
can't
looks
believe.
weird. What happened?
Well, I don't really like a lot of the changes. I don't like the
Why
change.
did the changes happen after I told you not to install it?
Why did they happen? I don't know.
Because you installed it.
I thought there would be a window of opportunity that Apple's saying, okay, upgrade to this, and then they would let it go. But they asked me a really long time after, and I thought it was just I didn't think that it was what you had warned me against.
So what you're saying is if you're badgered, you cave.
That could be it.
Good to know. That's a piece of information I will use to my advantage.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. If badgered, Melissa will cave.
Yeah.
But no, it's in all seriousness, it is an issue with the way Apple does this stuff. That you say, do you want to install OS 11? iOS 11? You go, no. And they ask again.
But yeah, well, they kept
again,
asking. Yeah,
and
yeah.
again,
but
and
they
again.
And they weren't telling me what the update was.
Yeah.
So I just thought, oh, well, this wouldn't be what Shawn was telling me not to do, but I should, because someone told me once, well, you should always update your phone. Someone told me the wrong information.
Well, no, that is true for a recent phone, but your phone, because it's so much older, for a brand new phone, yes, you always do the updates. But as your phone gets older, you, A, need those updates less, and B, those updates have the potential to slow your phone down.
Right.
It's not a guarantee, but they might.
Yeah.
For example, if you could, I don't think you can, but if you could install iOS 11 on an iPhone 4, it would just be bog slow.
Right.
It'd be awful. And I was worried about that happening with your iPhone 5. I didn't want you to get slowed down. Plus, I wanted to sit down with you and show you what was going to happen because the interface is different. The visuals of it, for me, I was surprised.
Yeah.
How the different font that they use, the user interface of it was significantly different. And I want to sit down with you and say, hey, this is what's going to happen if you want to do this.
Yes.
And you robbed me of that.
I did. I robbed you of that. I can pretend that we can look at it and we can go over it later. It's too late now.
Screw you. Too late.
I'm getting a different phone anyway, so.
Anyway, that and that's something. Yeah, we'll talk about it on a future episode. But that's where Melissa is in her
future episodes.
In her use, you have a Mac. You have your own MacBook Air, right?
I have a MacBook Air,
and you're okay with it. You like it.
I love my MacBook Air,
except you don't like the Outlook software.
No,
Microsoft.
No. But I'm getting I got to get used to that. That's new.
Trust
me.
Oh, geez. Susan Gare says you're going to be very good for him, Melissa. This is the difference between boys and girls, right? Susan says you're going to be very good for him,
so
Melissa.
Sweet,
and Les Posen says appropriate. She's a specialist in child behavior.
Yeah.
What a bunch of dicks these guys are.
I know, right?
What a bunch of dicks. All right, that's it for tonight's show, folks. I want to say thanks very much, as always, to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com for being here each and every week. Thanks to you guys for being tuned in, whether you're tuned in by the archive or whether you're listening in live like all those cool kids were. Also, as always, send an email to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com during the week, during the show, whenever you'd like, if you have any comments or questions or things along those lines. And a very gigantic special thank you to my future bride, Melissa Berryman. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was fun.
Yes,
did you enjoy it?
I did.
Did you have a good time?
I did.
Will you be
I
back
always have a
next
good
week?
time with you.
Will you be back next week?
Sure.
You weren't sure there for a second. Folks, until next week, as always, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!